Every day you face choices that feel impossible. Modern life bombards us with endless decisions, leaving us paralyzed. The ancient Stoics developed a powerful system to cut through this noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is the core of Stoic decision-making. We will uncover the specific frameworks these ancient thinkers used to solve moral and practical dilemmas. You will learn a complete mental operating system for making clear, confident choices. How did a Roman emperor facing invasion find perfect calm? What single question can instantly diffuse any crisis? The answers lie in a philosophy designed for action. What difficult choice is currently weighing on your mind? The entire system of Stoic decision-making rests on one foundational principle, the dichotomy of control. This is the first and most vital filter for any problem you will ever face. The Stoic teacher Epictetus, who began his life as a slave, opened his famous handbook with this very idea. He wrote that some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Our own judgments, our impulses, our desires, and our actions are within our power. Everything else, from our reputation to our health to the weather, is not entirely within our power. This is not a vague philosophical suggestion. It is a practical sorting mechanism. Applying it instantly cuts a seemingly massive, impossible dilemma down to a manageable size by dramatically reducing your field of concern. Consider a common modern source of anxiety, a job interview. You spend days worrying about the outcome, losing sleep over whether you will get the offer. The Stoic approach asks you to pause and categorize what is truly within your control. You can control your preparation, researching the company, practicing your answers, and choosing your clothes. You can control your effort, your focus, and your attitude during the interview itself. You can control sending a thoughtful follow-up note. Now, what is not within your control? You cannot control the other candidates, their qualifications, or the interviewer's personal biases. You cannot control the company's hidden budget constraints or a last-minute hiring freeze. The final decision, the outcome, resides squarely in the column of things not up to you. By performing this simple act of sorting, the weight of the dilemma shifts. Your energy is no longer wasted on fretting over the uncontrollable outcome, but is redirected entirely toward mastering what you can influence, your own performance. This mental shift is where clarity and confidence are born. Think of a recent worry that has been occupying your mind. Take a moment and mentally place its components into these two categories: what is within your power and what is not. Feel how the problem immediately becomes less overwhelming, its chaotic elements now organized into a clear plan of action and a list of things to release. Once you have sorted what is within your control from what is not, a deeper question arises. What is the actual goal of your decision? For the Stoics, the only true good in life is to act with virtue. Every other thing we chase, from wealth and status to comfort and even health, is merely preferred or dispreferred, but never truly good or bad in itself. This redefines the entire purpose of your choice. You are no longer aiming for a specific external outcome. You are aiming to choose the most honorable path, regardless of the result. Your guiding stars in this are the four cardinal virtues: wisdom to see the situation clearly, courage to act despite fear, justice to treat others fairly, and temperance to avoid excess. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this in his private writings. He wrote that the good is a good will, a character aligned with reason and virtue. Nothing else can be called good. Imagine a general offered a certain victory if he agrees to betray a loyal ally. From a conventional view, winning the battle is the good outcome. But for a Stoic, the only good is acting with justice and integrity. The virtuous path, the only path that leads to true good, is to refuse the betrayal, even if it means facing a more difficult fight. This is not about being naive, it is about recognizing that a tainted victory is a far greater internal defeat. The quality of your character is the only possession that can never be taken from you. So think of a decision you are wrestling with right now, perhaps a business choice or a personal conflict. Which option represents the most courageous, the most just, the most wise, and the most temperate action? The one that might be less profitable or more difficult in the short term is often the very path that strengthens your core self. But freedom is found in the correct alignment of our desires. This is the core of the Stoic discipline of desire, the crucial practice of training your wants to match what is genuinely good and within your power. Epictetus, the former slave who became a legendary teacher, put it with stunning clarity. He said that a man's master is anyone who has power over what he wants or does not want. To be free, you must wish for things to happen as they do happen. This is not about suppressing all desire, which is impossible, but about consciously directing it toward the only thing that is unshakably good, your own virtuous character. Everything else, what the Stoics called preferred indifferents, are merely tools. Wealth, reputation, comfort, these things can be used well or poorly, but they are not good in themselves. Your desire must be anchored to the virtue with which you use them, not to the possessions themselves. Imagine you are presented with a business deal that promises immense profit, but it requires cutting corners in a way that compromises your honesty. The undisciplined desire latches onto the money, the external reward. The disciplined desire asks a different question. Does this path allow me to act with integrity and justice? If the answer is no, then the virtuous choice is to walk away, not with a sense of loss, but with the profound satisfaction of having chosen your character over a temporary comfort. Your inner citadel remains unbreached. This discipline is a daily recalibration. It is the mental muscle you flex when you choose the difficult right over the easy wrong. So ask yourself this: what is one desire you hold that, if you were to gently release your grip on it, would bring an immediate and profound sense of peace? Is it the craving for a certain person's approval, the desperate need for a particular job title, the longing for a life that looks a certain way from the outside? Letting that go is not failure, it is the ultimate act of taking control. Once your desires are aligned with virtue, the next step is to translate that inner clarity into outward conduct. This is the discipline of action, the principle that our deeds in the world must be performed for the common welfare and guided by justice. It is not enough to want the right things, you must do the right things, treating every action as a fulfillment of your duty to the human community. The Stoic philosopher Seneca captured this spirit perfectly when he wrote, "We should conduct ourselves not as if we ought to live for ourselves alone, but as if we were born for our country and our fellow men." The right action is its own reward, performed because it is right, not because it might bring us praise or advantage. Picture yourself finding a lost wallet on the street, filled with cash. No one saw you pick it up, you could easily take the money and no one would ever know. The easy action serves only you. The Stoic action, however, is guided by justice. You see the wallet not as a windfall, but as someone else's property. Your duty is to return it intact, not for a thank you, not for a reward, but simply because it is the right thing to do. That act, done in private with no expectation of external gain, is a pure expression of your character. It strengthens your integrity in a way that no public display ever could. Recall a time you did the right thing simply because it was the right thing to do. Perhaps you told an inconvenient truth, or you helped a colleague without taking credit. Remember the quiet, solid satisfaction that followed, a feeling entirely separate from any external outcome. That feeling is the proof of a virtuous action, a small but significant brick in the construction of an unshakable inner self. Our actions find their anchor in the discipline of desire, but our perspective is what gives them true meaning. The Stoics had a powerful technique for this exact purpose, a mental exercise they called the view from above. This is not about escaping your problems, but about seeing them in their proper scale. It is a conscious act of zooming out, of placing your current dilemma within the vast, sweeping context of the cosmos and the relentless flow of time. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was a master of this practice, frequently reminding himself in his private meditations of the sheer smallness of all human affairs when viewed from this cosmic vantage point. He would look at the bustling forums, the grand armies, the entire drama of human life, and see it as a brief, fleeting play on a tiny stage. This was not meant to diminish our lives, but to liberate us from the tyranny of believing that our every minor setback is a world-ending catastrophe. Take a decision that is causing you stress right now, perhaps a conflict at work or a financial worry. Now perform the exercise, close your eyes for a moment, and project yourself 10 years into the future. Look back at this present moment, at this very problem. From that distant point in time, how significant does this dilemma truly appear? The sharp edges of the crisis will have softened, the urgent fear will have faded into a distant memory. The outcome, whatever it was, will likely be just one thread in the rich tapestry of your life, a single note in a long symphony. This mental shift does not make the decision any less important to make well, but it drains the panic from the process. It allows you to approach your choice not from a place of frantic desperation, but from a position of calm clarity. What feels like an impossible weight today is often revealed as a manageable challenge when viewed from the right altitude. Try this with a problem you are facing now. See it from the future, see it from the stars, feel the space that opens up around it, the room to breathe and think. The premeditation of evils sounds like a dark and gloomy practice, yet this Stoic exercise is one of the most powerful tools for building unshakable resilience. It is the rational rehearsal of potential setbacks, not to dwell on misery, but to disarm the power of surprise. By visualizing what could go wrong, you prepare your mind to meet misfortune with a calm and virtuous response, stripping adversity of its painful sting. Seneca wrote that we should anticipate not the usual, but the possible course of fortune. He advised that we should fortify our minds against the crashes and upsets of fate by sending our thoughts ahead to meet all that may come. This is the mental equivalent of a fire drill. You practice the response so that in a real emergency, panic does not take over. Imagine you are about to launch a major project at work. The conventional approach is to visualize success, to picture the applause and the promotion. The Stoic approach adds a crucial grounding layer. Before you begin, you sit down and consciously consider the ways it might fail. A key team member might quit, the market might shift unexpectedly, the client could reject the final proposal. You do not dwell on these possibilities with fear, you examine them with calm reason. For each potential setback, you ask yourself a simple question. If this happens, what would the virtuous response be? How would a wise and courageous person act? By doing this, you are not inviting failure, you are building an inner fortress. When and if a problem actually arises, it feels familiar. It is no longer a terrifying shock, but a scenario you have already navigated in your mind. The emotional turbulence is dramatically reduced, allowing you to act with clarity and purpose instead of reacting with blind panic. What is a future challenge you can mentally rehearse today to better prepare for it? Perhaps a difficult conversation, a financial risk, or a personal goal you are pursuing. Spend a few moments walking through the worst-case scenario in your mind, not to scare yourself, but to discover the strength and the plan that already resides within you. This interconnected perspective leads us to a profound Stoic principle that redefines our very place in the world, the concept of sympatheia. The ancient thinkers saw the universe not as a collection of separate, competing entities, but as a single, living, interconnected organism. Every rational being is a part of this whole, bound together in a universal community of reason. Your decisions are never made in a vacuum, they are ripples in a shared pond. Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to this idea, reminding himself that what brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee. Your well-being is inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. This shifts the fundamental goal of decision-making from what is good for me to what is good for us. It asks you to expand your circle of concern beyond your immediate self-interest. Think of a common team project at work. The competitive mindset pushes you to hoard information, to shine at the expense of your colleagues, viewing their success as a threat to your own. The Stoic, guided by sympatheia, chooses a cooperative strategy. You share credit, you offer help, you elevate the entire team's performance because you understand that a rising tide lifts all boats. The success of the group is your success, its failure is your failure. This is not naive idealism, it is a practical recognition of how the world actually works. We thrive in connection, not in isolation. How would your next big decision change if you took a moment to consciously consider the well-being of everyone it affects, from your family and colleagues to the stranger you may never meet? The most powerful choices are those that weave the threads of your own life more deeply into the fabric of the common good. Your mind receives a constant stream of raw data, immediate reactions to the world around you. The Stoics called these initial jolts impressions, and they understood that this is where every decision truly begins. An impression is not a fact, it is merely a first draft of reality presented to your mind, often laden with unchecked emotion and bias. The entire practice of Stoic decision-making hinges on the crucial gap between receiving an impression and giving it your assent. This is the moment of freedom, the split second where you can choose to question the story your mind is instantly telling you. The teacher Epictetus offered a timeless piece of guidance. He said, "Do not be carried away by the vividness of the impression, but say, 'Wait for me a little, O impression. Allow me to see who you are and what you are about. Let me test you.'" This is the mental pause button that most of us never press. Imagine you receive an email from your boss, a single line of critical feedback on a project you poured your heart into. The immediate impression is a hot flash of insult, a narrative of being unappreciated and attacked. Your heart rate spikes, and you are already drafting a defensive reply in your head. This is the automatic, emotional decision-making loop. The Stoic intervention happens right there. You feel the impression of insult, but you do not instantly assent to it. You pause, you tell the impression to wait, you examine it. Is this feedback truly an attack on my character, or is it simply information about a project? Could there be a kernel of useful truth here, even if it is poorly delivered? By withholding your immediate agreement from the initial, emotionally charged story, you create space for a rational, measured response. You can then choose to assent only to the examined impression, the one that separates the useful critique from the emotional noise. This is how you stop being a puppet jerked by the strings of every passing feeling. Think of a recent strong impression you experienced, a flash of anger in traffic or a pang of jealousy on social media. Did you pause to examine it, or did you simply accept its story as the entire truth? That space between the event and your response is where your true power resides. There is one final piece to the Stoic decision-making system that acts as its essential safety net. After you have aligned your desires with virtue, committed to just action, and prepared for adversity, you must still embrace the reality that the final outcome is never guaranteed. The Stoics called this the reserve clause, a simple but profound mental addition to any plan you make. It means undertaking all your actions with the silent caveat, fate permitting, or if nothing prevents me. This is not a statement of doubt, but one of profound acceptance. It is the recognition that you control your effort, not the world's response. Seneca beautifully articulated this in his letters, advising that we should combine intense effort with a complete surrender to whatever actually happens. He wrote that the wise man considers both sides, how he may neither hope for all things nor despair of all things. He commits to his purpose while leaving the result in the hands of fortune. Think of a student studying for a crucial final exam. The undisciplined approach is to tie all self-worth and future happiness to a single letter grade, creating immense pressure and terror of failure. The Stoic student, however, applies the reserve clause. They dedicate themselves fully to what is within their control, studying with focus and diligence, preparing to the best of their ability. Yet internally, they hold the outcome lightly, accepting that a sudden illness, an unfair question, or simply a competitor's better day could influence the result. Their peace does not depend on the applause, but on the knowledge that they did everything virtuously within their power. The result, whatever it is, becomes an external event to be met with the same reasoned calm. How can adding this silent reserve clause to your own goals change your relationship with success and failure? Perhaps you are striving for a promotion or planning an important event. What if you poured your entire spirit into the effort while simultaneously releasing your tight grip on the specific outcome? The crushing weight of expectation lifts, leaving only the clear, purposeful energy of doing your best. This is the ultimate freedom, to act with total commitment while remaining perfectly serene, no matter what the world gives you in return. The final component of this system transforms reflection into a permanent record of your growth. We often treat journaling as a simple log of daily events, but the Stoics designed it as something far more powerful, a nightly court of self-review. Your own mind becomes both the judge and the witness, carefully examining the evidence of your day. The most famous example of this practice is not a formal philosophical text, but the private writings of a Roman emperor. Marcus Aurelius composed his meditations not for publication, but as a personal dialogue to reinforce his virtues and correct his mistakes. It was his nightly training ground, the place where he held his own decisions up to the unwavering light of Stoic principle. The practice itself is disarmingly simple, yet its effects are profound. At the end of each day, you ask yourself 3 deliberate questions. What did I do wrong today? Where did my judgment falter or my character weaken? What did I do right? Where did I act with courage or justice? And most importantly, what could I improve tomorrow? What specific step can I take to be better? Seneca championed this very exercise, writing that we should call our minds to account each day. The day is over, he advised, examine your actions and your words. See what you did wrong that you should avoid, and what you did right that you should acknowledge. This is not an exercise in self-criticism, but in honest calibration. Imagine you had a difficult conversation with a family member earlier today. In your nightly review, you would not simply replay the argument, you would dissect it with Stoic clarity. Did I act with wisdom, or was I ruled by anger? Did I speak with justice, or was I merely trying to win? Did I exhibit the temperance to listen, or the courage to say what needed to be said? By writing down your findings, you externalize the learning, turning a fleeting moment of friction into a lasting lesson for your character. The goal is progress, not perfection. You do not need to write pages. The commitment can start with a single sentence. Tonight, before you sleep, take 1 minute to write a single sentence in a notebook or on your phone. Review one decision you made today. It could be as simple as I chose patience in a long line instead of frustration, or I could have been more generous in my interpretation of a friend's text. This small, consistent act builds the muscle of self-awareness like nothing else. It is the final, daily stitch that weaves these ancient principles into the fabric of your modern life, ensuring that every tomorrow is met with a slightly wiser and more resilient version of yourself. 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Cicero offered a simple image that captures the entire Stoic approach to action. Picture a skilled archer, he wrote. The archer's goal is to hit the target, of course, but his true task, his only real responsibility, is to do everything within his power to make that happen. He must select the perfect arrow, check the straightness of its shaft, and carefully fletch the feathers. He must strengthen his arm through constant practice, learn to judge the distance with a keen eye, and account for the wind's direction. He draws the bowstring with a steady hand, focuses his entire being on the bullseye, and releases the shot with perfect form. In that moment, he has done everything a virtuous archer can do. His character is expressed in the quality of his aim, but the moment the arrow leaves his bow, his control ends. A sudden gust of wind, a movement of the target, the interference of a passing bird, any of these can send his perfect shot astray. For the Stoic, the archer's success is not measured by whether the arrow strikes home. His success is measured solely by the excellence of his process, by the virtue he displayed in taking the shot. The hit is a preferred outcome, but the miss is not a failure of character. This analogy dismantles our modern obsession with results. We judge ourselves and others almost exclusively on outcomes, on the final score, the closed deal, the visible victory. The Stoic asks you to shift your entire focus to the quality of your own effort, to the integrity of your process. Think of a sales professional preparing for a major pitch. The archer's discipline applies perfectly. What is within their control? They can research the client's needs exhaustively. They can craft a compelling presentation, rehearse their delivery until it is smooth and authentic, and anticipate every possible objection. They can arrive early, dressed professionally, with a calm and confident mindset. This is their aim, their virtuous process. What is not within their control? A client may have had a terrible morning and be in no mood to listen. A competitor may have just offered a lower price that you cannot match. The company's budget might have been cut an hour before your meeting. The final yes is the arrow hitting the target, a hoped-for outcome that depends on 1,000 factors beyond your command. If you tie your self-worth and your sense of accomplishment to that yes, you hand over your inner peace to forces you can never command. But if you define your success by the quality of your preparation and the integrity of your effort, then every single pitch becomes a win. You walk away from every meeting, regardless of the outcome, with your character intact and your confidence unshaken, ready to knock another arrow and take the next good shot. In your current pursuits, are you focusing more on being a good archer or on hitting the target? Are you judging yourself by the care you put into your aim, or by the external winds that you cannot possibly control? This final piece of the system is perhaps the most radical, a complete reorientation of your relationship with reality itself. It is called Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates to a love of one's fate. This is not passive resignation, not merely gritting your teeth and enduring what life throws at you. It is the active, heartfelt embrace of every single event, every outcome, every so-called piece of bad luck, as if you had chosen it yourself for your own benefit. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius moved in this direction when he wrote, A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it. The Stoic aim is to become that fire, transforming every obstacle, every setback, into the very fuel for your virtue and strength. Think of a story you may have heard or perhaps even lived. Someone is passed over for a promotion they deeply wanted. In the moment, it feels like a crushing professional failure, a clear misfortune. They are disappointed, perhaps even bitter. But that forced change of direction pushes them to look elsewhere, to update their resume, to finally consider starting their own business or applying for a different role in another city. A year later, they find themselves in a position that is not only more fulfilling, but also offers greater freedom and opportunity than the one they originally lost. The setback was not a barrier, it was a necessary redirect. Without that initial no, they would have remained comfortably stuck on a path that was not their true calling. The misfortune was, in fact, a hidden blessing, but only because they eventually chose to walk through the door it opened. This is the power of Amor Fati. It reframes every event in your life as a necessary part of your training. The difficult person who tries your patience is not an annoyance, they are your patience coach. The project that fails spectacularly is not a waste of time, it is a masterclass in resilience and learning. The illness that forces you to slow down is not a curse, but a teacher of the preciousness of health and the value of stillness. You begin to look for the gift hidden within the difficulty. Can you identify a single event from your own past, something you once labeled a clear misfortune, that you can now look upon with a sense of gratitude? What did that loss teach you about yourself? How did that failure build a strength you now rely upon every day? To love your fate is to finally see the universe not as a chaotic opponent, but as the wisest of all possible teachers, one whose curriculum is perfectly, and sometimes painfully, designed for your ultimate growth. The world does not present itself to us in bare facts. It arrives wrapped in a layer of our own interpretation, a story we instantly tell ourselves about what is happening. The Stoics developed a razor-sharp tool to cut through this narrative layer, a practice they called objective representation. It is the discipline of seeing events not as good or bad, but simply as they are, in the most plain and factual language possible. This is not about becoming cold or unfeeling, but about giving your reason a clear slate to work with, free from the distorting filters of emotional judgment. Marcus Aurelius was a master of this. He would constantly remind himself to strip impressions down to their essence, to see things for what they are without the added commentary. He practiced breaking down a complex, emotionally charged situation into its fundamental, neutral components. Take a common modern frustration, a traffic jam. The automatic, judgmental description is to call it a nightmare, a disaster that is ruining your day. These labels are not facts, they are emotional reactions you are adding to the event. The objective representation is starkly different. You would say, cars are stationary on the roadway. That is the pure, observable fact. The cars are not moving. The judgment of nightmare, the feeling of ruined plans, these are your additions. By stating the situation in this bare, almost clinical way, you drain it of its emotional power. The crisis evaporates, leaving only a circumstance to be dealt with. Your heart rate slows. The anger and frustration have nothing to latch onto. You are now free to use your reason. You can assess your options calmly. Can you take an alternate route? Should you use the time to listen to an audiobook or make a hands-free call? The problem shifts from an emotional catastrophe to a logistical puzzle. Your energy is redirected from panicking to problem solving. Try this with a frustration you are facing right now. Choose one small irritation. Perhaps a colleague was short with you in a meeting, or a project is behind schedule. Now, re-describe that event to yourself using only objective, non-judgmental language. Instead of "he was so disrespectful," try the factual version. "He spoke in a brief tone and used fewer words than usual." Instead of "this project is a complete failure," state the objective truth. "The project is 3 days behind the initial deadline." Feel the immediate shift in your inner state. The emotional charge dissipates, and you are left standing on the solid ground of reality, ready to make your next move from a place of calm clarity, not reactive distress. Your mind has a fortress that no outside force can ever breach. The ancient Stoics called this the inner citadel, a core self built from reason and virtue where your truest decisions are made. Imagine a commander standing at the center of a besieged fortress. Outside the walls, chaos reigns, the enemy shouts, and projectiles fly. Yet inside, in the quiet command room, the commander's mind is clear. He assesses the situation with calm logic, makes his choices based on the best available information, and issues his orders. The storm outside is real, but it does not dictate his judgment. This is the power of the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius constantly retreated to this mental stronghold, reminding himself that the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. He knew that his peace did not depend on the chaos of the empire, but on the integrity of his own inner command center. When you face a high-pressure decision at work or a personal conflict that feels overwhelming, you have the same capacity to withdraw into this space of reason. The shouting emails, the demanding voices, the unexpected setbacks, these are all outside the walls. They are the noise of the siege. Your power lies in recognizing that you do not have to let that noise inside the command room. From that quiet center, you can observe the chaos without being consumed by it. You can separate the facts of the situation from the fear it generates. You can ask, not "what do I feel like doing right now?" but "what does wisdom suggest? What does courage require?" The decision that emerges from this place will be fundamentally different from one made in a state of panic or reaction. So ask yourself this: what does your own inner citadel look like right now? Are its walls strong and high, built from the consistent practice of virtue and clear thinking? Or are they low and crumbling, allowing every external worry to storm directly into your mind? You strengthen those walls every single time you pause before reacting, every time you question a fearful impression, every time you choose a just action over a convenient one. This fortress is not a place you visit only in crisis. It is a home you build for your mind, one reasoned decision at a time. Your mind's fortress is built to withstand the chaos of outside events, but what about the things we naturally desire? The Stoics offer a crucial distinction that prevents even our reasonable goals from becoming sources of inner turmoil. They separate everything in life into 2 categories: the only true good, which is virtue, and everything else, which they call indifference. Health, wealth, reputation, even the well-being of our own bodies, these are not good or bad in themselves. They are merely preferred or dispreferred. A long and healthy life is preferred to a short one, but it is not a moral good. A stable income is preferred to poverty, but it is not the goal of a well-lived life. The teacher Epictetus made this stunningly clear. He said that externals are not under our control, but the use we make of them is. Your virtue, your character, is measured not by what you have, but by how you use what you have. This distinction is the ultimate compass for any major life choice. Imagine you are faced with 2 job offers. The first is a high-paying executive role at a company known for questionable environmental practices. The salary is immense, the status is high, the security seems guaranteed. The second offer is for a modestly paid position at a non-profit whose mission you deeply believe in. The work is meaningful, the team is aligned with your values, but the financial rewards are limited. From a conventional standpoint, the first job is the obvious success. But through the Stoic lens, the high salary and the impressive title are merely preferred indifferents. They are tools. The real question is not which job pays more, but which job allows you to act with integrity, justice, and wisdom. The virtuous path is the only good. Choosing the high-paying but unvirtuous job means trading your character for a tool. You gain the indifferent, but you lose the good. This is the fundamental error the Stoic system is designed to prevent, mistaking a preferred indifferent for the ultimate goal. So take a moment and look at a decision you are weighing right now. What indifferent are you currently treating as a good in your own decision-making? Is it the desire for a certain level of comfort, the craving for social approval, or the fear of financial instability that is steering your choice away from the most virtuous path? There is a profound difference between giving up and giving in. The first is a failure of will, but the second is an act of profound wisdom. This is the art of acquiescence, the deliberate choice to yield to reality as it is, not as you wish it to be. It is not passive surrender, but an active, rational acceptance that conserves your most precious resource, your mental and emotional energy, for the battles you can actually win. The teacher Epictetus, who understood powerlessness and freedom better than most, framed this as the ultimate mental shift. Do not seek for events to happen as you wish, he instructed. Wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go well. This is the core of the practice, to align your desires with the unfolding tapestry of reality itself. Imagine the all-too-common modern ordeal of a cancelled flight. You are at the gate, your plans are set, and then the announcement comes. The automatic, undisciplined response is to fight the reality. You might feel a surge of anger, a frantic need to argue with the gate agent, to mentally rage against the airline, the weather, the universe itself. This fight consumes immense energy but changes nothing about the grounded aircraft. The Stoic, practicing wise acquiescence, takes a deep breath and performs a rapid internal recalibration. The flight is cancelled. This is the current, unchangeable fact. Wishing it were otherwise is now a form of self-inflicted torture. The rational acceptance is to release the futile struggle. Your energy is instantly freed to flow toward what you can control. You can calmly rebook your ticket, find a hotel, inform the people waiting for you, or even use the unexpected time to read or rest. The circumstance has not changed, but your entire experience of it has been transformed from a crisis into a logistical puzzle. You have stopped fighting the current and instead learned to steer your boat within it. Where in your own life are you currently fighting reality instead of practicing this wise acquiescence? Is it a relationship that has changed, a business opportunity that has vanished, or a personal limitation you refuse to accept? The tension you feel is the friction between your will and the world's way. Releasing that struggle does not mean you approve of the situation, only that you choose to stop exhausting yourself against an immovable wall so you can find the gate that is actually open. That single breath before you speak or act is your most powerful tool. This is the Stoic pause, the conscious decision to create a tiny gap between an event and your response. In that brief silence, you reclaim the freedom to choose your reaction instead of being chosen by your impulses. Seneca wrote that the best cure for anger is a delay. He advised giving your initial fury time to settle, for that first heat to cool, so that the fog of emotion can clear and reveal the landscape of reason beneath. The pause is not a sign of indecision, it is the very engine of wise action. Think of the last time you received a message that made your blood boil. Perhaps it was a curt email from a colleague or a critical comment online. the immediate, visceral impression is to fire back a sharp reply, to defend yourself and put the other person in their place. This is the automated loop of reaction. The Stoic intervention happens when your finger hovers over the send button. That is the moment to enact the pause. You physically lean back from the screen. You take one slow, deep breath, filling your lungs completely and releasing the air with control. In the space of that single breath, you ask the Stoic question, is my intended response virtuous? Is it just, or is it merely vengeful? Is it wise, or is it foolish? Is it courageous, or is it just reckless? You are not suppressing your feelings. You are simply refusing to let them drive the car. By the time the breath is done, the emotional tsunami has often receded just enough for your better judgment to take the wheel. The email you then choose to send or not send will be a product of your character, not a prisoner of your temper. Make this your physical practice today. Before you answer a question, before you choose what to eat for lunch, before you respond to your child, take one deliberate, conscious breath. Use these small, low-stakes moments to build the muscle of the pause, so that when a true crisis arrives, that life-saving space between impulse and action is already a familiar and comfortable home. Your mind has just sorted the problem into what you can control and what you must release. Now, take that clarified field of action and apply a second, equally powerful filter. Categorize the dilemma itself by asking a single, targeted question. Which of the 4 cardinal virtues does this situation primarily test? Is it a matter of justice, of giving others their due? Is it a call for courage to act despite your fear? Does it demand the wisdom to see the truth or the temperance to avoid reckless excess? This question instantly transforms an emotional quagmire into a structured ethical puzzle, giving you a clear grid for decision-making. Picture a complex personal relationship issue, like discovering a close friend has shared a private confidence you entrusted to them. The initial wave of hurt and betrayal is powerful, urging you toward a sharp confrontation or a silent, resentful withdrawal. This raw reaction is where most people get stuck, but the Stoic grid asks for a pause and a categorization. What virtue is being tested here? Justice is central, as your friend has acted unfairly. But temperance is also on trial, your ability to manage the fiery impulse toward a harsh, disproportionate reaction. Wisdom is needed to discern their true intent, and courage is required to have the difficult conversation that justice demands. By framing the problem through this lens, your path forward becomes illuminated. The most virtuous action is not to suppress your feelings, but to channel them into a just and measured response. You choose to seek understanding before accusation, to speak your truth with calm clarity rather than angry blame. The goal shifts from making them feel bad to upholding your own standard of fairness and integrity. This is how you solve for character, not for momentary satisfaction. So take a current problem you are facing, perhaps a conflict with a family member or an ethical gray area at work. Hold it in your mind and ask yourself this precise question: which Stoic virtue does this situation primarily test? The answer will not solve the problem for you, but it will hand you the exact tool you need to begin crafting your response with unshakable integrity. Your every decision gains a powerful ally when you consult an inner counselor. The Stoics perfected this by inviting the contemplation of the sage, a mental model of perfect wisdom and virtue. This is not about chasing an impossible standard of perfection, but about setting a clear direction for your own moral compass. Seneca urged this practice, writing that we should choose some good man and keep him ever before our eyes, so that we may live as if he were watching us and do everything as if he saw. This ideal sage is your personified standard for action, a constant reminder of what your best self looks like. Picture the sage walking through a crowded marketplace when a stranger publicly shouts a cruel and baseless insult. The untrained mind would react with immediate humiliation, anger, or a sharp retort. The sage, however, remains utterly composed. He pauses to examine the impression. Is this insult true? If it is false, why should he be troubled by a lie? If there is a sliver of truth within it, why be angry at a chance to learn? He sees the insulter not as a monster, but as a person acting from their own ignorance and pain. His response is measured, perhaps a calm correction or a simple, silent departure, rooted in the unshakable knowledge that his worth is not determined by another's words. His inner citadel is completely secure. You can cultivate this same presence by consciously invoking your inner sage before your next important choice. When you stand at that crossroads, take one deliberate breath and ask, what would the sage do here? How would perfect wisdom and courage navigate this dilemma? The answer that arises will not be a complex philosophical treatise, but a clear, often simple, directive for virtuous action. It cuts through the noise of your fears and desires, pointing you toward the path that builds rather than erodes your character. Before you make your next decision, however small, take that moment to consult your wisest self. The obstacle is the way. This famous Stoic maxim flips the entire script on hardship. A setback is not a detour from your path, it is the path itself. It is the raw material presented to you for the express purpose of practicing virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote that an impediment to action advances the action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Every difficulty is a chance to build a specific strength you would not have developed otherwise. Consider the Roman philosopher Seneca, who was exiled to the barren island of Corsica by a jealous emperor. He was ripped from his life in Rome, his career, his friends, everything that defined him. The external situation was a catastrophe, but Seneca did not crumble. He saw his exile not as a prison sentence, but as a laboratory for his philosophy. It was in that isolation, stripped of all his worldly status, that he wrote some of his most profound and enduring letters and essays. The obstacle of exile became the very fuel for his greatest work. His circumstances did not change, but his perception of them transformed a punishment into a purpose. Your own challenges operate on the same principle. A financial struggle is not just a shortage of money, it is a masterclass in temperance and resourcefulness. A conflict with a difficult person is not merely an annoyance, it is a daily drill for patience and justice. A professional failure is not a final verdict, it is a hands-on seminar in courage and resilience. The work of becoming a better person cannot be done in a vacuum. It requires resistance, just as a blade is sharpened by friction against a stone. So ask yourself this direct and powerful question. How can you reframe your biggest current obstacle as an opportunity to practice a specific virtue? Is that stressful family situation your training ground for patience? Is that overwhelming project at work your chance to cultivate courage and perseverance? Is that personal loss your path to deeper wisdom and compassion for others? Name the obstacle and then name the virtue it is asking you to build. The problem does not disappear, but it is instantly demoted from a foe to a teacher. Its power to distress you dissolves, replaced by the clear, purposeful energy of a student ready to learn. Life is long if you know how to use it. Seneca's words are not about adding years to your life, but about adding life to your years. The Stoics had a powerful practice to achieve this focus, a practice they called Memento Mori, the remembrance of death. This is not a dark or morbid fixation, but a brilliant tool for cutting through indecision and clarifying your true priorities. The awareness of your own mortality acts as a filter, instantly sifting the essential from the trivial. Think of the stories you have heard of people who receive a terminal diagnosis. In an instant, the background noise of life falls away. The fear of a co-worker's opinion, the anxiety over a minor financial setback, the endless pursuit of status symbols, all of it loses its power. What rises to the surface are the things that have always truly mattered: deep connections with loved ones, the urgency to express love and forgiveness, and the quiet desire to live in a way that feels meaningful and true. The diagnosis did not create these values, it simply removed the clutter that was hiding them. Memento Mori is the conscious, daily application of this same clarifying lens, without waiting for a crisis to force it upon you. It asks you to make your choices as if you were living a life you would be proud to have lived at its very end. So let that question land with its full weight. If you knew with certainty that you had 1 year to live, what single decision would you make differently today? Would you finally have that difficult, honest conversation? Would you leave the job that drains your spirit? Would you spend more time with the people who truly matter? The answer that springs to mind is not a random thought. It is a signal from your deepest self, pointing directly toward the choice that aligns with your core values and your untapped courage. This remembrance is the ultimate priority-setting mechanism, ensuring that the finite days you are given are spent on what is truly infinite in its worth. Your character is built one virtuous decision at a time, but where do those decisions find their direction? An ancient Stoic philosopher named Hierocles offered a beautiful and practical map for our ethical obligations. He imagined our lives as a series of concentric circles. At the very center is your own mind, the inner citadel. The next ring out holds your immediate family. Then comes your extended family and local community, followed by your fellow citizens, and ultimately, the outermost circle encompasses all of humanity. The natural, untrained instinct is to care most about the inner circles and let our concern fade as we move outward. But Hierocles said our moral progress is measured by our ability to draw the circles inward. Your ethical duty is to consciously pull the outer rings closer to the center, to extend the same sense of care and concern you have for your family to your neighbors, and then to strangers, and finally to every human being. This is not about sacrificing yourself, but about expanding your sense of self. The philosopher used a powerful analogy. Think of a series of ropes drawn in the sand. Your goal is not to erase the lines that separate you from others, but to gently pull those outer ropes closer to the central point, blurring the harsh divisions until you feel a genuine connection to the whole. Now apply this to a modern dilemma. You receive a year-end bonus. One voice in your head, representing the innermost circle, argues for putting all of it into your personal savings, a perfectly reasonable act of self-care. Another voice from a wider circle suggests using part of it for a family vacation, but the Stoic model asks you to pull another circle inward. What about your local community? Could a portion of that bonus help a local food bank? And what of the outermost circle, all of humanity? Could a small donation support clean water projects overseas? The choice is not about denying your own needs, but about consciously allocating your resources across the circles of concern. The virtuous act is to find a balance that acknowledges your duties to yourself while actively practicing your duty to the wider human community. This framework turns every decision about time, money, and attention into an exercise in ethical geometry. How can you draw the circle wider in one of your upcoming decisions? Perhaps it is choosing to mentor a new colleague at work, pulling them from the circle of strangers into the circle of your community. Maybe it is deciding to buy from a local business instead of a giant corporation, reinforcing a closer ring of connection. Each conscious act of drawing a circle inward is a stitch that strengthens the fabric of our shared humanity. Every single moment, your mind is presented with a coin. This coin is an impression, a first flash of thought or feeling about an event. The Stoics believed that our suffering does not come from the coin itself, but from our quick, unthinking acceptance of its value. The philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who understood true powerlessness, used the powerful metaphor of a money changer. When someone hands you a coin, you do not simply accept it at face value. You weigh it, you test its metal, you examine its stamp. You are testing its authenticity before you give your assent and accept it as genuine currency. Your mind must operate with the same deliberate scrutiny. An impression arrives shouting, "This situation is a disaster," or "That person meant to insult me." The untrained mind immediately assents. It takes the coin without examination and suffers the consequences of a bad judgment, but you have the power to pause. You can hold that coin of thought in your hand and say, "Wait, let me see what you are, let me test you. Is this situation truly a disaster, or is it merely an inconvenience? Did that person truly intend insult, or are they simply having a difficult day?" A wrong judgment, assented to without question, becomes the root of all your anxiety and pain. Consider the impression that arrives after a single professional mistake. You miss a deadline or make an error in a report. The immediate, unchallenged impression is a loud, clear coin stamped with the words, "I am a failure." If you give your assent to that coin, if you accept it as true currency, your entire world contracts around that single judgment. You feel shame, you want to hide, your motivation plummets. But what if you held that coin up to the light first? You test it. "I made a mistake," you say. That is an observable fact, but does one mistake equal being a failure? Is that a rational equation, or is it an emotional distortion? By withholding your immediate assent, you break the chain. You can choose to assent only to the examined truth. "I made a mistake, and I can learn from it." The initial, catastrophic judgment loses its power over you. What is one negative judgment you are currently assenting to without examination? Is it the thought that you are not good enough, or that a certain problem is insurmountable? Hold that thought in your mind like a strange coin. Feel its weight, but do not yet spend it. Ask yourself, is this impression true, or am I simply accepting it because it feels familiar? Your freedom is found in that moment of testing, in the sacred space between the impression and your assent. Your comfort zone is a cage built by your own habits. The Stoics deliberately stepped outside of it through a practice they called voluntary discomfort. This was never about self-punishment or denying yourself joy, but about actively training your resilience. Think of it as a fire drill for your soul, a controlled way to test your independence from the external comforts you often take for granted. The Roman philosopher Seneca regularly practiced this. He would purposely wear shabby clothes and sleep on a hard bed, not because he had to, but to remind himself that true happiness does not reside in a soft mattress or a fine tunic. His contemporary, Musonius Rufus, taught that practicing poverty is the only way to become truly fearless of it. By choosing to experience a small lack, you prove to yourself that you can endure it, and in that proof, you find a profound and lasting confidence. This is the ultimate goal, to build a willpower that remains unbroken when life inevitably delivers its real and uninvited hardships. A simple modern example is choosing to fast for a single meal. You are not doing this to lose weight, but to practice the virtue of temperance. You feel the hunger, you acknowledge the impulse to eat, and you consciously choose to wait. In that small act of will, you are building the mental muscle to say no to more significant temptations later, or you might choose to take a cold shower. The initial shock is a jolt to the system, a moment of intense discomfort. But by staying under the water and breathing through it, you are not just waking up your body, you are training your mind to meet adversity with calm focus instead of panic. You are demonstrating to yourself in a tangible way that you are stronger than your immediate desires. What small, voluntary discomfort can you introduce this week to strengthen your own resilience? Could you leave your phone behind on a short walk, practicing the discomfort of being alone with your thoughts? Could you choose the plain meal over the lavish one just for a single dinner? Each of these small, chosen acts is a brick in the fortress of your character, a personal declaration that your peace is built on something far more solid than mere comfort. Your personal reason is not an isolated spark. It is a fragment of the cosmic fire, a sliver of the very same rational principle that orders the stars in their courses and the seasons in their turn. The Stoics called this ultimate framework the universal law, and they saw our highest purpose as living in agreement with it. This is the profound meaning behind their most famous maxim, to live according to nature. It does not mean to live like an animal in the wild, but to live in accordance with your own true nature as a rational being, and by extension, with the rational, interconnected nature of the cosmos itself. Your individual faculty of reason is a direct participant in this grand, universal order. Marcus Aurelius captured this sense of citizenship perfectly when he wrote, "My city and country, as Antoninus, is Rome." As a human being, it is the world. Every decision you make is not just a private affair. It is a vote for the kind of world you are helping to create, a tiny but real contribution to the harmony or the chaos of the whole. Consider a choice you might face in a supermarket aisle, standing between a conventional product and one that is certified as environmentally sustainable. The conventional item is cheaper and more convenient, appealing to your immediate self-interest, but the Stoic, recognizing the universal law, asks a different question. Does this choice align with the rational, orderly principle of the universe? The cosmos operates on systems of balance, cycles of giving and receiving. The sustainable product, even at a slightly higher cost, is an action that supports that balance. It is a vote for the health of the oceans, the stability of the climate, and the well-being of future generations you will never meet. Choosing it is an act of cosmic citizenship. It is your small, personal reason aligning with the great, overarching reason of nature. This framework elevates your decisions from the mundane to the meaningful. It connects your daily life to something vast and eternal. So the next time you stand at a crossroads, ask yourself this simple but profound question. Does this choice support the rational, interconnected whole, or does it serve only my isolated, narrow self? Your answer will guide you not merely to a good decision, but to a right one, a decision that resonates with the very logic of existence. That ideal sage is a powerful guide, but the Stoics knew we also need flesh and blood examples. They actively studied real historical figures who embodied the virtues they sought to cultivate. Seneca constantly referred to such men in his letters, holding them up as living proof that a life of integrity was possible. He wrote of Cato the Younger, a Roman senator whose unwavering commitment to principle became legendary. When facing a difficult choice, a Stoic would not just ask what the abstract sage would do, they would ask, how would Cato have acted in this situation? This question provides a concrete script for virtue, a mental model grounded in real-world decisions. Cato chose civil war over surrendering the republic to a tyrant, a drastic action rooted in his absolute refusal to compromise his values. While you may never face a choice that monumental, the underlying principle translates perfectly. Imagine you are a modern executive pressured to approve a misleading financial report. The abstract virtue of justice feels distant, but asking what a leader known for integrity would do brings it into sharp focus. Think of a figure you personally admire for their character. perhaps a historical leader like Abraham Lincoln navigating the complexities of the Civil War, or a contemporary figure known for their ethical stance. What would they do if they were in your shoes, facing your specific dilemma? The answer is rarely about mimicking their exact actions, but about channeling the core character that drove those actions. It is about accessing their courage, their honesty, or their compassion as a resource for your own. So choose your own personal Kato, a figure whose moral compass you trust. When you next stand at an ethical crossroads, invoke their presence. Your decision will gain the weight of history and the clarity of a life well lived. Epictetus offered a map for this inner work, dividing the entire territory of the mind into 3 distinct fields of practice. He called these the 3 topoi, the 3 disciplines where your attention must be trained for any significant decision. The first is the discipline of desire and aversion, what you want and what you want to avoid. The second is the discipline of impulse, your drive to act or not to act in the world. And the third, the master discipline, is the art of assent, learning when to say yes or no to the judgments that flood your mind. Think of these as a comprehensive checklist for self-examination before any major choice. Imagine you are considering a career change, leaving a stable but unfulfilling job for a risky entrepreneurial venture. Your first battlefield is desire and aversion. What are you truly chasing? Is it a genuine desire to create something meaningful, or are you merely averse to the boredom of your current role? You must scrutinize these emotional currents, ensuring your desires are aligned with virtue and not just a frantic escape from discomfort. The second field tests your impulses. The moment you decide to act, what is the quality of that impulse? Is it a frantic, fear-based lunge towards something new, or a measured, deliberate step founded on careful planning and a commitment to just action? Your impulse must be checked against the question of whether this move serves the common good, not just your personal restlessness. The final and most crucial field is assent. Throughout this process, your mind will present you with powerful impressions. One day, it will shout, "This is a fool's errand, you will lose everything." The next, it will whisper, "This is your only chance for happiness, you must do it." The discipline of assent asks you to withhold your agreement from both these dramatic extremes. You examine each thought, testing it for truth before you allow it to influence your decision. You only assent to the examined reality. I have a stable job and a promising idea that requires careful research and prudent risk. This 3-part system ensures your decision is not a raw, emotional reaction, but a holistic exercise of your entire rational faculty. Take a recent decision you have made, big or small. Hold it up to the light of these 3 disciplines. Where were your desires and aversions truly rooted? Was your impulse to act grounded in justice and wisdom? And which impressions did you give your assent to, the fearful ones or the clear-eyed ones? This is not about judging your past choices, but about understanding the machinery of your mind, so your next decision can be built on a foundation of unshakable self-awareness. This entire system is not a collection of quick fixes, but a unified mental operating system for navigating life. From the foundational sorting of the dichotomy of control to the ultimate embrace of your fate, each principle interlinks. You begin by distinguishing what is yours to manage from what is not. Then you set your internal compass toward the only true good, a virtuous character. You strengthen that resolve by testing your desires, guiding your actions with justice, and viewing your struggles from a higher vantage point. You build resilience by rehearsing challenges and pausing to examine every initial impression. Marcus Aurelius, facing his own mortality and the weight of an empire, left us with this urgent reminder. Your lifetime is a brief moment, he wrote, so you must be like a mountain standing firm against the wind and time. While you live, while you can, be good. The true power of this philosophy lies not in understanding it, but in applying it. Choose just one of these principles to practice in the coming week. Perhaps you will start with the nightly review of your day, or maybe you will focus on applying the single pause between an event and your reaction. The entire fortress is built one brick at a time. We would love to hear from you in the comments. Share one decision where a Stoic principle helped you find clarity or strength. And if you are ready to build a more resilient mind, subscribe for more guides to practical philosophy.